In this episode of the RV Small Talk podcast, we're going to hang out with our good friend Teri Lucas. Now, you may remember we've had her on before, and we talked about all kinds of what to do when bad stuff happens to you kind of moments. And she is a full-on resource on that front as she teaches CPR, first aid, AED, and things like that. But she also has some thoughts on what you need to have with you in your first aid kit and how to prepare for traveling nowadays because the landscape has changed in the past year and a half. So let's get into that topic this time.
This week's episode is brought to you by Truck Camper Magazine. Now, just because you're not into truck campers or you don't have a truck camper, you still need to go check out this website. They put out a weekly newsletter that is absolutely free and has tons of ideas, everything from storage to great mods and stories of great adventures that people are having in their truck campers. So, truckcampermagazine.com. You can go ahead and sign up for their free weekly newsletter. Goes straight to your email and you can just learn everything about truck campers. If you're starting to wonder about truck campers yourself, if it's the right fit for you, they have a guide for that. Something for everybody at truckcampermagazine.com. You can also check them out on Facebook at Truck Camper Magazine. Welcome to the RV Small Talk podcast, where we talk about lightweight trailers, truck campers, and the people, places, and adventures that go along with them. We are your hosts from Princess Craft RV. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Clint, and PJ is covering all the bases here at Princess Craft today, so she's actually not available on the microphone right now. She may pop in later. But thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Let's dive right on in. All right, it's been a year and a half since the last time we had you on board with us, Teri.
And I'm still recovering.
That's right.
I didn't realize I was that effective.
I mean.
Well, you tell stories in a way that is easy to learn from, which includes details. And Lindsay can't handle first aid details.
I like to think that I've grown up a little bit in the past year, so we'll see how good I do this time.
Here's your
with
test.
The stories. Mm-hmm. But for those of you who have not heard the episode that Teri was on before, you should, one, go back and listen to it. We'll put it in the show notes. But it's, let's give like a general introduction of Teri and what she does.
Well, basically, I teach first aid and CPR and AED use. Mm-hmm. I have my own company called Kardiac Lifesavers. Cardiac is spelled with a K because my son, Kevin Lucas, was 14 when he had a heart transplant and 15 when he went into sudden cardiac arrest and died. Mm-hmm. So we took his initials, KL, and named the company after Kevin, teaching in his honor and his memory, trying to save as many lives as possible.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for how long?
I've been teaching CPR since 1980, and the business has been around for about 12 years now.
Right.
So on top of teaching for that long, you have a lot of firsthand experiences with first aid and CPR and things like that. So I'm just really glad you're here. You're really fun to talk to, even if you kind of gross me out sometimes.
I do my best. It's so much fun to watch your face.
Oh yeah, we have a camera this time.
She's not even trying.
All right. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, as I reached out to Teri for this year's installment of Podcasting with Teri, we kind of kicked around some ideas, but one thing we would like to dive into, just for preparing your RVing experience, being prepared for things, and because we have some experiences from weather and all that lately, let's talk about what should be in your first aid kit, just to kick it off, and we'll take conversation where it goes from there.
Well, they've got great first aid kits that you can buy already prepared, but I'm more of a do-it-yourself person.
Okay.
And I grew up with my mom using a cosmetic bag as a first aid kit or a tackle box.
Was it?
Tackle box,
Was
yes.
it Avon calling? Was it maybe it's Maybelline?
Mary Kay?
I think it was Samsonite. I'm not sure.
Samsonite. It's way off.
But because it had all the little compartments.
Right.
Yeah. And like a tackle box is perfect. And that's what we used in our family. We always had the tackle box.
Okay. How would let's talk about, can you remember what was in that? Because that was 1960s.
Oh, you're so kind.
You can see Clint's face right now.
Yeah.
Very kind. Probably late 50s and 60s.
What would she have put in her first aid kit?
Band-Aids.
Okay.
Burn ointment. Back at that time, it was called Foil, Foile, or LLE. That ointment was actually developed. I grew up in San Antonio. It was developed at Brooke Army Medical as a burn ointment, and it was very effective.
Yeah.
I think you can still get it, but my brother pulled a cup of boiling or a pot of boiling water onto him.
Here we go.
And Mom put the foil all over his legs, and he never scarred or anything.
Wow.
This is not an endorsement. It's just a story.
And it's
Just
an
stories.
experience.
Yep, it's an experience. But she would have foil. She would have alcohol. She would have peroxide. She would have cotton balls, hydrocodone, calamine or Caladril.
Okay.
You know, we're always running through the bushes and getting bit or stung by something that causes
That's
a
what kids
rash.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ace bandages, triangular bandages. Do you know that triangular bandages for Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts were developed so they could have them for first aid purposes?
The what they carry around their shoulders.
bandanas?
Yeah.
The neckerchiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neckerchief.
I did not.
And cowboys with bandanas. The idea they were there for first aid.
I thought that was so that they could ride into the dust storms and be banditos when they wanted to.
The dust storms, yes. Now we have masks, though, you know.
Right.
Which reminds me, when Kevin had his heart transplant, we got a pass to go out of the hospital. And so Kevin had his baseball cap, his sunglasses, and his mask on because he was immune suppressed.
Right.
And I looked at him as we were getting ready to walk out the door of the hospital. I went, you know, Kevin, no, this was back in 92. We can't go anywhere near a bank or a convenience store.
I was about to say, let's just
and
rob
now,
a bank while we're at it.
now everybody's in a mask and sunglasses,
Right.
so it's no
Right.
big deal.
It is kind of weird.
And it's, we haven't had too many scenarios where people have been taking advantage of the ready-made costume that we're all wearing.
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, that sounds like the first aid kit I grew up with. Like just
Some- yeah.
essentials. But I bet over, I don't know, the past 40, 50 years, first aid kits look different now.
There are some major changes. You still need the basics like absorbent compresses, which if you don't happen to have one, you can, and pretty much go Amazon and get all this stuff. But I prefer making my own kit, not the prepaid, because I know what I use most of.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Somebody asked me once, why did you become a first aid instructor? I said, for kids' self-defense. Head wounds, you just, they do it. They fall, they cut their head open.
Especially my son. His head is huge. His legs are spindly.
Yeah.
He's always like face first diving.
Well, their heads are so heavy, they're off balance.
Yeah.
He's like the opposite of a weevil wobble.
Yeah. No, he doesn't continuously stand up. He just goes down.
But
he gets back with a big
love that
smile.
video. I love that video of him just walking off the chair and going headfirst into the ground. And then he just like stands up and laughs and then like climbs back on the chair and does it again.
I'll show you later, Terry.
It's absolutely adorable. Anyway.
So absorbent compresses for big bleeding wounds, adhesive bandages, we call those Band-Aids, adhesive tape roll to tape on, sometimes on certain places you can put a Band-Aid on, but it's not going to stick. So
Right.
I'll over tape it
Right.
to keep it there. And some of these new Band-Aids actually have antiseptic on the pad.
In the little
Right.
pad, I've seen those.
That's cool. Because
Sure.
that saves you some time and effort. Of course, always wash with soap and water before you put on anything.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Do you know the best way to take off a Band-Aid?
With fire.
That's not a trick question. I'm asking, do you know any tricks? Because my kids won't put Band-Aids on because they're too scared of taking them off.
That's me as well.
Because if you buy those good Band-Aids, they don't just like
They don't
soak
like
off
that.
with water.
No.
You have to just rip them off. And my kids are just like, no, I don't need a Band-Aid. And I'm like, but you're bleeding. So
Yeah.
do you have any tricks?
Quick.
Yeah, cool. That's what I've been doing.
So they tried that with me on my last surgery in Houston, and I have hairy arms, and that was by far the worst part of the entire surgery experience.
Right.
Recovery and everything, getting the bandages off. Whenever they put a little pick line in your arm and all that, that was the worst part of the experience by far.
I feel like I'm traumatizing my kids because they'll have wounds and they're like, no, I don't
No
want
Band-Aid.
that. I'm too scared because I know it's going to have to come off.
Well, I just buy the gentle Band-Aids now.
They make gentle Band-Aids?
They make, well, for us older folks with tender skin, and it, I just scrape my arm along a chair and rip my skin. So old age sucks. But anyway, they do have gentle Band-Aids that really do come off a lot more easily.
Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to be interrupting you a lot.
That's fine. That's the way this works. And your antibiotic treatments, your antiseptic wipes and towelettes, roller bandages, and your 4x4s or 2x2s. 2x2s are pretty
What are we
useless.
building forts now?
No, this is...
You're hurt. Let's build a hospital for you.
Raise a doctor.
The squares, the absorbent squares, 2x2s, 4x4s.
Okay.
Just keep them. And the thing about having a first aid kit that you're building on your own is you can buy all of this stuff in gross quantity and then just restock.
Sure.
So it's not like having to go out and buy
You're
it
sourcing yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're an RV and you're planning your RV first aid kit, well, if you have a household supply that is, like you're saying, to buy in bulk, then you're really supplying every place you're going to be. Your household, your RV, you have something in your cars.
I always recommend a first aid kit in the car. Always.
Yeah. So
it's true, because that's when my kids get hurt, is when we go to the park.
Right.
Or when we're at a friend's house, or...
If I'm changing a tire, I'm going to come back bloody. It just happens. I don't know what I cut myself on. Happens every time.
Clint.
That's the truth. I'll look down and...
There's something sharp, and I don't know what it is, but I always
keep
scrape
touching it.
Well, that and you're so busy, you keep going and you look back and you've left a trail of blood, and it's like...
Right.
I don't remember how that happened.
You guys bleed way too much.
Well, or the last time I was coming back from Colorado, and it's a long trip back, and I just got out to check something. It was windy, and the door slammed on my thumb.
Ow.
And it happened at such a place that I was just stuck there. The door had me held, and I was looking in the window at my daughter when it happened. And then I still stuck. I go back and I tap on the window and look at my wife through the window, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, pointing at my thumb, and I open the door slowly, like, let's see how this goes. Yeah, that was an event.
I remember that.
Yeah,
actually.
Yep.
I remember you came in and showed us, and I almost hit you. You remember?
Yep.
Such sympathy.
Is your thumbnail still messed up?
No, it's good.
Oh.
It's good. It's there. It's
I
not even a
remember that.
prosthetic.
So gross.
I remember the kids were getting out of the car, Kevin and Heather, and we had a sliding door on the van.
Oh, those things actually scare me because they can go.
And it wasn't automatic. It was you had to, and it was a heavy van.
But once it starts going.
And one of them shut, and
another
Kevin's
one had the
hand thumb.
Yeah. And a kid shuts it with aplomb. I mean,
with
they're just
gusto.
like, woo,
and the problem was I had trained the kids, when we get out of the car, you lock the door. So not only was it stuck, the door was locked.
Yeah.
So I'm getting out of the driver's seat and they're screaming and hollering, "What's wrong?" "Kevin's thumb's stuck in the door." "Well, open the door. It's locked."
Yes.
So then I had to come around, use the key, open the door, get his thumb out.
I have never slammed a finger in a door, ever.
I think I can remember 3 instances myself.
I've never done it.
And I'm just waiting
and now
for
I'm
my
going
kids.
to probably do it today. Now that I've said that.
My caution is always respect the wind, because that's when it happens to me.
Respect the wind.
Respect the wind.
Respect the door, too. The garage door got me.
Just respect everything.
Door.
No, the one into the house, not the big one.
Oh, okay.
I was like,
Yeah, the one into the house. And it has
It's like, Terry,
metal
that has a track and wheels. That's going to cut you.
and a sensor. The weather stripping on this door is metal strips. And yeah, between the cuts on both sides of the finger and the smash.
Number 2. All right, I'm taking a tally here.
Okay.
the first one was fake.
That was a practice. Let's go back into your
Okay.
first aid kit, Terry.
Burn dressings. You want to have something, in case there's a burn, that first you want to cool it with water and then something sterile and clean to put over it.
Yeah. So do you have a few different types of burn dressings, like for different events, like a black tie? Themes,
I like formal, yes.
formal themes. Yeah.
Now, when
Yeah.
you say cool it, do you mean strap an ice pack to it?
No ice. Cool water.
So that's what I did to my little sister.
And you mean cool water as in cool water, not the men's cologne.
Clint.
There is a men's cologne called Cool
Yes.
Oh,
Water.
yes, there is. It was very popular when I was
Right? That's
I
way
did
back.
not know
very
that.
It's
young.
90s,
Yeah.
90s top of the line.
The alcohol in that? No.
Ooh.
No. Oh, no.
Your screaming smells so good.
Yeah, no, just cool it down with water and then a dry compress. If it's a really bad burn, you don't even want to put ointment on it. You want to cover it,
Yeah.
protect it from infection and fluid loss,
Yeah.
and get them to the hospital.
Really bad burns turn into open wounds so easily. And that's what I'm always terrified about is, I mean, it may look like, okay, this is bad. But if you brush against it versus being very careful and laying a dry compress over it and lifting a dry compress up, you can very easily turn it into something very gaping
Yeah.
and terrifying.
Well, they have nonstick dressings. So they're coated so it won't stick to the skin. So when you take it off, it doesn't pull skin off.
I think burns are a good thing to discuss because if we're talking about camping, I think burns are probably one of the most common
Sure.
things to happen while you're camping because, well, fire
Yes. Yes.
and cooking when the wind and I mean, all of it.
And a lot of the cookware that we use, I mean, it's not our kitchen that we kind of can work our way around almost with our eyes shut, almost. We're used to that space. We're used to our pots and pans. But cookware, when you're in a camper or around a campfire, everything's more exposed. The sizes are different. And there's a lot of, oftentimes, metal involved unless you've upgraded to the silicone products.
Well, just the elemental factors of like, yeah, you turn around and something's there, or the wind blows
Right.
and knocks this over, and even just making campfires.
Sure.
I'm not good at making campfires.
Right.
I would totally burn myself just trying to start a fire. That would be me.
And it's so easy to not realize what is hot versus what isn't.
Right.
You know, a stick on the edge, you go grab it to toss it further in, it may be burning inside or underneath.
So on that point, okay, you talked about different kinds of burns. Can we talk real quick about how do I know if I need to address the burn this way, and how do I know if I need to address the burn
yes.
that way? Like, can I tell just by looking at it?
If it's just red, like a bad sunburn or a heat burn, cool it with water. Those you could use an ointment on. If it blisters, that's a 2nd degree. You do not want to pop the blisters. Again, protect it. You might need medical help for a 2nd degree. If it's a 3rd degree where you've actually lost skin tissue and there's charred
That's
skin
number 2, for
around
real.
it, that's cool it, seal it with a nonstick dressing,
And head to the hospital.
and get there, or call 911 if you're home or something. But that one you can't play with. The thing with burns, your biggest risk is loss of body fluid and infection.
Yeah.
Loss of body fluid?
Because when the skin is burned, the body's reaction is to bring blood and fluid to that area. Anytime you're injured, that's why you get a bruise. The blood rushes to that area to protect
Which
those
means it's
cells.
not anywhere else in my body?
Hopefully you've got
Depends on how
enough.
much. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't understand how the body works.
you're constantly making blood
Okay.
in your bone marrow. So there's always a supply unless you've got a real open wound, which brings us to making sure you have a tourniquet in your first aid kit. And you can actually make that with a triangular bandage
Right.
or a belt. Nothing smaller than an 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Otherwise, you turn.
You're going to cut something
You're going
off
to turn
at
it
that point.
into, well, you are, but you're going to cut into the skin.
Yeah.
You're going to complicate everything. But yeah, if you're bleeding heavily and you can't stop it, then you definitely want a tourniquet. The store-bought I got through Amazon, and it's just like a belt. And it's got a loop. You pull it through. It's Velcro. And then it's got the windlass, which is the little piece that you
That's-
twist.
That's right.
That's
I
what
do
it is.
remember that
You
when in
twist
our
it
first
down.
aid class. That is cool. So use a tourniquet anytime you're bleeding and you don't stop.
You can't stop it. Okay. The best thing to stop bleeding is direct pressure. Now, in talking about bleeding, they have a new product. The dressing itself is coated with a clotting agent, and you put that over the wound, and it's quick clot, or there's other names, and it actually starts coagulation right there at the wound.
Oh, so it teams up with what your body's trying to do.
Right.
Because your body's trying to clot it as well, But with this on the being applied to it on the other side, it's kind of a double effort.
Right. But the direct pressure is the most important part. Plus that clotting agent helps slow it down. Now, if that doesn't work and you're still bleeding, then you go to
Tourniquet
the tourniquet
time.
Exactly.
Tourniquet time. I mean, it's not really something you sing about, but hi, I'm Lindsay. I sing everything.
I feel like there's some comedy sitcom out there waiting for tourniquet time.
Tourniquet time. I can't stop bleeding.
Well,
So I'm just breathing into the microphone.
Just write the show, Lindsay. Just go for it now.
Okay. Casting available on my website, tourniquettime.com.
There it is. And we'll wait. Don't worry about it. We have to do this with our phones all the time. So
well, I had
you're
it
fine.
on.
You're fine.
Do you need to call somebody back?
My daughter called, but I'll call her back. It's just I had it on silent, and it's not, and I don't understand.
I don't understand. Yeah. I don't understand. Why? A lot of that.
Okay, another thing you want to think about is poisoning. Because
Okay.
if you're out somewhere and the kids get into
And my daughter gets mad at me.
and poisons you,
She wouldn't. She's 5. People don't be that concerned about me.
Well, my son actually told me the other day while we were camping that see those berries on that tree? And I said, yeah. And we've talked before, like, just don't eat anything, off the tree. He said, do you see those berries, Mama? And I said, yes. And I said, what do you think they are? He said, if you eat them, it turns you into a blueberry, like on Willy Wonka. So like he is
that's
watching Willy
temptation at that
Wonka. Yeah. And that's just, I guess, since the berries looked like blueberries, he made that connection. And I kind of laughed, but yeah, kids have weird imaginations and they might wander off and think this looks exactly like what I eat at home. So why wouldn't I eat it?
Yeah, full-grown adults are going to be thinking this too. So
it's
not
true.
okay. So what do we do?
well, you want to have poison control center on your speed dial on your cell phone, because you can call them and tell them what it is and what it looks like, or even take a picture and send it to them, and they can advise you.
I've wondered about them. Do they have like this really cool software system where they say start describing this to me, and they have a resource that just kind of goes through everything and pulls it up on the screen?
Well, in a way, yes. I have never been to the
is it
poison
big
control center.
Google.
or is it a big like encyclopedia? They're like, hold on, and they start flipping pages. You can hear them
No,
on the
it's
other
called
end.
Google. You just type in like Central Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. I've Googled,
Large.
and WebMD has killed me so many times, and yet I'm still here.
Google, not WebMD.
Well, Google serves up WebMD.
I know. Ignore it.
So tell us more.
So I may have shared this last time, but I was with my son and a neighbor's kid, and they were eating leaves off a tree. And so they were playing
Dinosaur?
No, they were actually playing ice cream
Brontosaurus.
truck in the putting the leaves in the back of the big wheel and then pretending it was ice cream.
All right.
So
I like the imagination though.
I know.
Carry on.
thank you.
They're committed.
So no, I'm the one. No, there's called poison control, and said there's this tree. Here's the name of the tree, and they go, got to get them to throw up because it's a poison. The longer it stays in their system, the more damage it's going to cause to their
The lining of their stomach.
it was
everything.
more. It was the more nerve system, the nervous system.
neurotoxin.
It was a neurotoxin, and it would affect the brain pretty quickly. So they told me step by step, how do I go to get
How
them
do
to
I make
throw
them
up?
up?
Epicac.
Not anymore.
I know.
You can't find
Just
it
kidding.
anymore. Yeah, but
Don't use Epicac.
Back then, that's what it was. But you had to get them to drink 8 glasses of water before. So the neighbor's kid threw up on the second glass. My kid,
Held on to it, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah. Work for it.
Fortunately, they hadn't eaten them. They hadn't swallowed them.
Okay.
So, but I swear by poison control.
Because I'm sorry, you said that they told you to have them throw up, but the reason why you need to call them is because some things that would make it worse, correct?
Exactly. Like a petroleum product. If you swallow gasoline or something that burns going down.
It'll burn coming up.
Exactly.
That's number 3, Lindsay. That's number 4, Lindsay.
And that's when you want to coat the stomach, and they'll tell you, what to use to have them to swallow, to coat the stomach and the esophagus and get them to care or sending ambulance right now.
Yeah.
Charcoal is something they use
Yes.
to help coat and absorb the poison that's in the stomach before it can do a whole lot of damage.
I don't know if you've ever taken
Bless you.
charcoal, but charcoal is hard to swallow.
Yeah, it is.
It's so difficult.
No, knock on wood, I've never had that experience.
You don't want it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
That'll teach you not to eat leaves.
Or anything else.
All right.
So triangular bandages. I love them. You can't have too many. When they're clean, you can use them directly on the wound as a dressing. Then you can take another one and make it a tie to tie the dressing on. And you can use it for splinting, tying a splint on, which is another thing you can have. I was Googling splints, and they have all kinds. You can have some that roll out and then form to the arm or whatever. But then you have to have something that
you got to
tie it on.
Yeah.
A roller bandage might work, an ace bandage, or your triangular bandages.
Yeah.
If you have an injury, like you suspect a broken leg and you don't have a splint long enough for that, put something between the legs and use the good leg as the splint for the bad leg. And then take your triangular bandages and tie them together. Do you know the most common fractured bone in the body?
Okay, hold on.
I feel like I should know this.
I know. Let's guess. Pinky finger. Nope.
Little toe. Because that's what I kick the most.
Your nose. No.
No, that's just me.
Collarbone. Collarbone?
Yes.
No.
Ding, 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 ding,
I was
ding, ding.
hoping you weren't say that.
Most common fractured.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
I feel like hurting your collarbone would be so much more painful than any other bone. And I've broken a lot of
the
bones.
movement of it.
But thinking about breaking my collarbone or my nose are the two that make me go, ugh.
It is
What
the
are we
most,
at? 5, 6?
I don't know. Just give up.
I quit.
It is the most common. So here's your triangular bandage. You don't want to move that bone. So you can splint the arm and then tie, maybe you may need 2 triangular bandages together. And then you
Tie around the torso
around
and
the
arm
torso
together.
to hold the upper arm to the chest.
To your body.
So you can't move, and that's not going to move that bone.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had
Absolutely.
a lot of experience with that on both the older boys.
I don't want to.
Are they collarbone breakers?
Yeah, one did both of them at one time.
And they're musicals, so that should be their band.
The collarbone
breakers.
breakers.
I'm trying to cover my ears, but it's just pressing my headphones closer and making you louder.
I must admit, though, one of them, when we got him back from the hospital and he's in his brace and everything, and he wants to lie down and go to sleep, I said, you'll probably want to lie down at an angle. Let me slope this. No, I want to lie down. So it's going to be a little difficult going down and getting up.
You're going to learn a lesson.
So he lies down.
And you can't get back up. Oh.
Yeah.
So I got it, a special one of those pillows that are like
A wedge.
V-shape, a wedge pillow. And I helped him up. I put it back and he gently laid it. I said, now, isn't that better?
Yes,
You should
Mom.
listen to Mom.
Oh my goodness.
Eye coverings. You want to keep some eye coverings in your first aid kit because you could splash something or the wind blows something in your eye and scratches your
Yes.
eye.
I don't think that's something that's very common in those ready to
Maybe so, yeah. Yeah, and
First aid
it's
kits.
amazing how horrific a scratch on your eye can be. You think, there's not much feeling on your eye. I've known people who have scratched their eye, and it's bad for a long time.
When I was first wearing contacts, back then they were hard contacts.
Yeah.
I remember waking up in the middle of the night trying to take the contact out of my eye.
Yeah, because you fall asleep with them.
No, I'd already done it.
Oh.
I'd already done
So
it.
you're just digging in your eye for nothing.
And it hurt so bad that's the first thing I thought. And somehow I had scratched the cornea. And the pain was horrific. So went to the doctor. He examined, and you just have to let it heal.
My eyes are wandering. Just think about
So you want to cover it up. But to make it really rest, you also have to cover the other eye because our eyes track together. And so basically, I had to blindfold myself for 24 hours to let it heal.
Wow.
So an eye covering with something, and you can buy these eye pads, and then they have a little adhesive strip that you put it on and then put that strip over it to hold it in place. But I would also recommend, if it's a serious injury, to make sure the other eye is covered as well.
I think that that's something with anything that is broken or sore, to remember how connected the whole body is.
Good
You're
point.
stabilizing one side, but if it's like a pull side of a bone, you're pulling your hand too, you might need to pay attention to the extend side too in stabilization, because it's all tied together. And that's like if you have a front torso injury, you might need to pay attention to the back torso as well, just because movement is all connected.
It's kind of like when you go to the gym and you exercise and you find muscles you didn't know you had from an exercise.
What is this gym you speak of?
It's something I've heard of.
So what would you do in this instance? Because I may have had an experience with this instance in my eyes. I took out my glasses and I was going to put on my contacts. I'm not the world's best at putting my contacts in, and I don't wear them that often. I do more now because I hate how wearing a mask and having glasses fogs up. But a year or so ago, I took off my glasses, put them down. I'm so nearsighted, can't see where I put them down. So I get a contact and I need to clean it. I grab the nearest contact cleaner that is on the counter and I put it on there, and then I go to stick it in my eye. Fire.
Yeah, it was the cleaner, not the solution.
It's because at the time Laura was wearing hard contacts, so she has that cleaner that you're not supposed to put in your eyes, enzymatic or whatever it was. It lit me up.
Yeah.
And so what to do for my eyes then?
You can use an eye wash, or you can actually use the contact solution.
The right contact solution.
Yeah, not the cleaner.
What I grabbed was the red cap.
Yeah, I've done that.
Don't grab the red cap, folks.
I've done that. As a matter of fact, I used to keep them side by side in the medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
And I did it so many times that I moved it away so I wouldn't accidentally grab it. But you can use the contact solution and use that as a rinse or an eye wash, or you can buy an eye wash solution.
I just went to the bathtub, put my whole face underwater.
That's what,
and
tap water.
I was waterboarding myself for the sake of saving my eyes because it burned so bad.
It is.
My sinuses cleared out. My ears were ringing.
Cleared up the acne, everything.
That's right. That's right. I was bleach blonde. No, that's a little bit too far.
Yeah, I've done it. It hurts.
Yeah.
But tap water if you don't have anything else. Absolutely.
All right. So eye coverings in your first aid kit. What's next?
Chewable low-dose aspirin.
Ooh.
Like baby aspirin. If someone's having heart...
Flintstones aspirin?
If it's 81 milligrams, okay. I don't know. I haven't looked at Flintstone's aspirins.
Flintstone doesn't have aspirin.
Yeah, I know.
I went with
oversight.
I haven't had little kids in a while.
Don't listen to him.
But Bayer actually puts out a low-dose chewable orange-flavored aspirin.
So buy a pack of that, stick it in your first aid kit, and that's in case somebody's having a heart attack?
If they're experiencing chest pain, absolutely. And you could be sitting around the campfire with a bunch of other RVers and some guy or girl is complaining, give them it's not going to hurt them. But make sure they chew it. I was teaching one class and this gentleman said my wife was having chest pain, and I called 911 and they asked, did you give her an aspirin? He goes, yeah. Did she chew it up? No, she just swallowed it. Give her another one. Make her chew it up because it gets into the system faster.
Way faster.
Right. And I've heard of some tablets that are actually supposed to be like put underneath your tongue because of how fast it can enter your system underneath the tongue.
Nitroglycerin is often administered that way.
I know that's how I take it.
That's how I take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kid you not.
All right.
Same here. Sugar packets or flavored sugar drink.
See, now you're just talking my language.
For the bees?
No,
hummingbirds.
For a diabetic emergency.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
A diabetic bee?
Possibly. They are having issues now. I saw where you should cut oranges and set them out for the bees.
Yeah, that works for like an hour, and then you know what happens? The ants find it. And then the bee comes to land on it, and the ants get the bee.
Okay, glad I didn't do that.
Yeah.
The more you know.
What they really need is just a little thing. I love bees. Okay, so you need like a shallow dish and get some sugar and dissolve it in some water, but then put like some stones in it and set that out.
So they can stand on the stones?
Yes, because bees cannot stand on water like other bugs, so they need something to stand on to drink the water.
Okay.
In my mind, this is adorable.
And the ants won't find it, and the bees will drink it, and it will help them.
Okay.
I can do that.
PSA.
I can do that.
All right.
And that's an interesting, fun thing to do while you're camping. So there you go, folks.
Yes,
it's a camping activity.
Yeah. Oh,
What happens
save
when
the
you
bees.
leave? What happens when you leave? The bees are looking for your sugar water.
Well, they're pretty
good at finding
some more.
resources.
So yeah, we're just helping them out.
Okay.
Tweezers.
Yes.
My kid is a
splinter magnet?
splinter magnet.
Yeah.
The last 2 camping trips we've been on, me and my mother had to pull out at least 4 splinters.
Wait. Your boy or your girl?
My boy, Hawk, for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and he just freaks out, and it takes 20 minutes to convince him that we can just get it out, and then it. But yes, we need a good pair of tweezers.
I also keep like an old hat pin, or I actually have needles from syringes because
to
they
dig it
got
out.
that beveled edge.
Okay.
And you can slide it right under.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'll go find me an alleyway and get me some.
Gross. Hey, she made that noise too. Welcome to the club.
Bonus points.
Okay, so what else?
Gloves, always a good
Gloves. And if you can, non-latex, because
Sensitivities.
You don't know who's allergic.
you don't know who's allergic.
Yeah, and they may not know who's allergic.
Exactly.
Yes. That's very true.
You find out the wrong way sometimes.
Yeah, you don't want. That's not a good thing.
I see on here butterfly closures, and you talked a little bit about that before. So, same with the burns. How do I, as like Joe Schmo, know when to use a butterfly enclosure and when to like get out my sewing kit?
And I want to dive into the sewing kit thing more after the butterfly discussion.
Butterfly closures, when you can pull the 2 edges of the skin together,
Because that's what they're going to do.
that's what they're for. They're like steri strips, or when you go to the doctor, you have surgery. Sometimes they don't sew you up.
Yeah, they staple you.
They staple you, or they steri strip you, or nowadays they glue you.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
And
so it
I'm
doesn't
not-
matter how deep the wound is or how big it is.
Yes,
it's
it
more
does.
okay.
Yes, it does. If it's really deep, butterflies aren't going to work for you. And if it's on a fleshy, fatty part, it may be a little harder to close. They may need stitches.
Okay, but if you can just kind of pinch it together, then just butterfly closures.
Yeah.
After soap and water.
Yeah, after cleaning. My daughter was at a friend's house, and we were visiting, and the back of the swing on the back porch fell off. And of course, she went down, and on the top of her head, got a little inch gash. And so,
But head wounds are so messy.
they bleed. Well, you've got so many little blood vessels in there.
Capillaries.
But they're also the scariest. Like they're the ones where people tend to like freak out
Right.
a lot more.
Yeah, some people.
I mean, I do. It's your head.
It's just a flesh wound, but it's your head flesh
I
wound.
know, but like that's where your brain is.
It's pretty well protected too. So my neighbor's like going, and I said, okay, I need a razor, soap and water,
You
alcohol,
start with the razor.
and I need medical tape because I didn't think she'd have butterfly closures. So we go to the bathroom, shave her hair right at that area, wash her off, put the antiseptic on, and then I made my own butterfly closures. You just take the tape and you cut 2 little V's on either side. So there's a very narrow margin there on the middle of the tape. And then just pull those edges together. Then we Band-Aided it, and she was fine. She went out and played.
Yeah.
Kids are resilient.
Yeah. If you can get past the fear,
Oh yeah.
or if you can get past what a parent's fear does to the kid,
Yeah.
because we set them off as parents.
Don't freak out. Don't freak out.
Right. If you can get past that, man, they're like, hey, everything's fine. I really want to play now.
Yeah.
Stop it. I want to play.
I had an example of that because when you're talking parents' fear, you can get into shock, psychological shock. The kid's already going into shock a little bit. But when the parent comes in, they can compound it. When we were stationed in Germany, a gentleman was coming back to the States, and they have war games over there. So they're issued ammunition, but it's not full weaponry ammunition, but it has a kick.
Right.
Well, instead of turning in his leftover ordnance, he put it in the dumpster. And one of the kids in the housing area pulled it out. And this was a kid that my oldest son knew. And my oldest son was like 7 at the time. And so I'm in the apartment visiting with my neighbor, and we hear boom, like a loud firecracker. And then this kid starts screaming. And so I told my friend, first aid kit's in the closet, bring it out. I'm going to go see what's going on. And I came out the door, and he came around the far end of the building screaming. And I hadn't had a first aid class for 15 years when this happened. And I ran up and saw him, and he's screaming, my hand, my hand. He had pulled the pin on a booby trap flash simulator, which is like a grenade. And he had lost the tops of these 3 fingers. There was just white bloom showing. And his palm was all puffed and black from the burn.
Yeah.
And he has shrapnel wound to his forehead.
I think I remember this story. It's all coming back to me.
And so I treated it, but his mom, somebody gone up and got his mom and told him that he'd blown his hand off. And she came tearing
hysterical.
up. And I looked at her, and I had fixed his wound with butterfly closures. I had covered his hand. There was no blood there. He was not in any major problem, but he was going into shock. And so she came running up, and I looked at her and said, stop. I said, you've got to be calm. If you can't be calm, I can't have you here. And she took a breath, and she sat down next to me, and we're both talking him down. Breathe with me, because he was hyperventilating. Look in my eyes. Breathe with me. And the ambulance finally came and took him. And they got him to the clinic, and they had to give him IV because he was in shock, and he had to restore his fluid level, and took him to the major hospital. But he had no life-threatening injuries. He had life-threatening shock.
Yeah.
That's interesting that shock alone can be the determining factor of making it or not. That's so wild.
Well, it's all, like you said, it's all connected, and your nervous system is just listening to everything else, and just it'll freak out on you.
Yeah. So being out somewhere, you see something bad, you're going to have to control yourself as well. You're going to have to bring it down and then be there for them and keep them calm. Because you may do all the first aid stuff and then I don't have troubles with shock.
I think that's something I probably need to work on.
Well, here's the thing. Another thing that you did is by calming her down and then bringing her in, it became more of a team effort because you were also dealing with the trauma of seeing this and dealing with it. And now it becomes a little bit more of a shared load. So if you do have someone who can help share the emotional load that is shock of seeing this go down, that can totally help.
Yeah.
You know, being in it together is way better than...
Yeah, I'd covered his hand, so she didn't see anything at that point, which helped her remain calm too.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. One other thing I want to talk about, because we're talking about camping scenarios, is both being overheated or being dehydrated and also hypothermia, kind of the extremes with weather because we're out camping. What are some of the just basic signs of both and the first steps we should do in both scenarios?
Well, and we just did that here in Texas where we couldn't get water and
it was cold.
Right. So riff on that.
Well, interestingly, hypo and hyperthermia have very similar symptoms. A lot of it's confusion, not being able to coordinate and talk.
I'm hypothermic right now.
Well, there are, other causes.
Sorry.
You're so cute.
Is cute the word? Is that the word?
Aren't you sweet, you hypothermic little person?
Bless your heart.
Hypothermia looks so good on you.
Oh, my goodness.
But hypothermia is life-threatening in that the body is cooling down and losing the ability to produce heat and keep the organs going. Frostbite might be one of the first signs or may not. Frostbite is when the skin looks waxy and white and becomes very hard. That's because the cells in the body are freezing. The cells are full of fluid. The fluid freezes. The cells die. But you don't want to, if someone is hypothermic, you don't want to shock them. You want to warm them, bring them back as quickly as possible, but warm them gently. Don't let them get near a fire. They can't feel if they're frostbite or if they're because the body is reacting to trying to keep the internal organs warm.
And they may want to be right at that fire.
Yeah. So you got to watch them, wrap them in blankets. If their clothes are wet, get them out of wet clothes. Wrap them in warm clothes and blankets and set them near the fire, near heat, but keep an eye on them. Hyperthermia, especially if they're dehydrated, that's going to be even twice the problem. You want to get them cooled off quickly. If possible, immersion in a pool or a lake or cool water. If that's not possible, a shower. If that's not possible, cold rags, especially around the neck, the groin, the wrist, anywhere the blood travels closest to the skin, you want to have a cold pack there because as the blood flows past that cold skin, it cools
It'll
it
cool
down.
off and take it to the rest of the body.
Exactly.
I know dehydration is a big problem here in Texas. It's so hot here in the summer, and people try to go camping. And I know that, if you're already thirsty, then it's too late or not, but you're already starting to not have enough water, and it's hard to carry enough water if you're going on a hike or, going here. I know a lot of times I've been like, I don't want to carry this big, heavy cup, so I'll just drink some water and then leave it there. Yeah. But I mean, I think that affects people in the summer in Texas, especially more than almost anything else, is dehydration. Right. So just don't. And I'd like to
think
on it.
That's one thing that I have my kids actually carry,
especially with your kids for sure, because your kids won't say, "Oh, I'm thirsty." I just have mine won't. I just drink more.
So I carry water with me whenever we go on a little excursion from the RV or whatever. But I like to have my kids have their own water with them as well, because I feel like you can be responsible for yourself, but it's also learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carry your water.
And it'll get lighter if you drink it.
That's right.
Drink it.
Yeah.
That's right.
When I take the grandkids just for a 2-mile walk to the park and back, we all have water. Always.
Yeah.
I like to stop at every house on the way and just use their faucet. I mean, just to see if their hose water tastes the same.
If they are hyperthermic, and you want to restore their electrolytes because they're also dehydrated. So a sports drink, something with electrolytes and sugar in it, is the best thing.
Okay.
Gatorade.
But to keep them from dehydration, water's always the best.
Absolutely.
Should people have in their first aid kit something like salt tablets?
Salt tablets?
There are no recommendations that I've seen for that.
Okay.
It's mostly they push more toward the Gatorade for the electrolytes and not just sodium replacement, but the whole gamut, because you're going to cover everything with something like that.
I know factory workers way back in the day, they would take a salt tablet in the morning every day.
But remember, salt can dehydrate too.
Yeah.
So you don't want that alone that I'm aware of. I'm not a doctor.
Well,
so
they weren't back then either.
So I would go more toward the sports drinks or just water.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What are we missing? Because we I don't think we've even made it down to halfway through your bullet points here.
Well, cold packs, like we said, for hyperthermia. Now, cold packs can be the store-bought where you smash them and then the chemicals release, it gets cold. Thank you. The other thing could be just a plastic bag for ice and water. When you put water in with it, it's a little bit more pliable, especially if you've got a sprain, strain, or possible break.
Okay.
And you want to ice that down. You also want to use ice on bee stings, bug bites, but not on snake bites. Snake bites, no constricting bandages or anything. Just calm them down and get help.
Okay.
If you can identify the snake, that'll help because there's so many that aren't venomous.
Right.
But if you can't, you can always maybe take a picture. But the priority is getting the person to safety away from the snake. And
not let them get into hysterics.
Keep them calm.
Right.
You want to keep that blood flow. We don't put any constricting bandages on, but if they say they got bitten on the arm, make sure you remove any jewelry or any tight fitting things because of swelling.
Have you ever been bitten by a snake?
No. He let me know where he was. We were walking through the wilderness at Gila Bend, and I was like 4th person or 5th person in line. And by the time I got to this one spot in the path, he had coiled and he was letting us know he was there. Yeah. And my little brother was behind me and I yelled snake and I went that way and he pushed everybody back that way.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's as close as I've ever gotten or ever want to get.
As much as we've mentioned ice, do you put some barrier between the ice and the skin?
Thank you. Yes, a towel always. You never put ice directly on the skin.
Okay.
And also when using those chemical cold packs, if you're holding it on someone, you put the towel down, you put the ice pack on them, make sure you protect your hand. My daughter was a cheerleading coach and she had a girl injure her shoulder And she put the towel and put the ice pack on her, but she held the ice pack on herself and called me later and said, Mom, what does frostbite look like? So make sure you protect your own hand if you're holding it on.
Good call. What else?
CPR barrier or a breathing barrier, a pocket mask.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you never know when you're going to have to do CPR. And if it's a stranger, you really would like to have some sort of barrier.
Yeah, and I wonder if COVID heightens that at all too.
Well,
are people getting more scared?
In training, doing practice breathing is optional. I mean, if the person doesn't want to do it, that's fine with me.
Right.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Like the number of people who are willing to step in and
it was already
help
low.
somebody with CPR because
well, even with COVID, you can still do compressions.
Right. Which is the main recommendation now anyways,
I remember learning that in your class.
Hands only.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's really no reason not to do CPR, but you can choose not to do the breaths. And that's fine. But start compressions until somebody gets there.
Okay. And your recommendation is if you've done any studying of CPR and you don't feel like you remember it perfectly right, that doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a go.
Press hard and fast on the center of the chest.
Yeah, and to a tempo, staying alive, music, beat.
There's so many. You can Google CPR songs.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of them out
and
there.
you will know one of them.
I think that's a recommendation I'm going to make, and it's a joke leading into this. That should be your traveling playlist. Is all these CPR songs.
That's a cool idea. Well, some of them are very interesting. Girls just want to have fun.
Yeah,
it's the right beat. And the one
but you're saving someone.
And the one I really think is kind of hysterical is Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh my gosh.
Don't sing the song in your head. I'm learning this. Don't sing it in your head or out
music
loud.
only, no vocals.
Right. Hum it and hope they don't know what you're doing.
We'll add that playlist in the show notes as well.
You're gonna have to make it.
But the main song that we all promote is "Staying Alive"
because that's the hope.
That's the plan.
All right.
So sterile bandages, 4x4 pads. Eye covering with a means of attachment, eye wash. It doesn't hurt to have some sterile water if you're like hiking somewhere and you're not near water.
Yeah.
To wash off.
It does such a great job. Just if it's sterile water, it's just a great job of cleaning anyways. What do they call it? The world's #1 solution or solvent. Yeah. Anyways.
And it's most recommended for as antibacterial. The first thing they tell you is soap and water.
Yeah. Okay.
We talked about splints, butterfly closures.
Hey, I have a question on soap. There's got to be some recommendation on what kind of soap to use because I would have figured all these perfumed and heavy lathering soaps aren't necessarily what you're going for. Like, would you want a specific type?
I have not heard of anybody saying one is better or worse than the other.
I'm using oatmeal soap then.
Go for it. So
I'm using Red Bud Suds.
Well,
I think I'll use lava and grind a little stuff into it.
Pumice would be great. That's so wonderful. Yeah. I use only heavy lye based soap.
There you go.
Hey,
a collapsible cup.
That's a good idea.
With your water. If you have a diabetic emergency, you want to stir up the sugar packets or the flavored sugar drink so that they can drink that. Now, if they can't drink, you can also put a little sugar under the tongue to let it dissolve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get them on the pathway to recovery.
And it's amazing how fast a diabetic can pull out of a diabetic emergency with a little sugar. We've used it at a day camp for Cub Scouts, and we had a kid. We started losing him. He had a sip of a sugared drink, and within a minute,
he's back playing capture the flag.
But at that point, you need to get them more than that. I mean, that one sip or sugar under the tongue isn't going to fix them.
That's true. It's not just a sip. We had him drink some, and that's one thing you want to keep encouraging them to drink as long as they're able to. Until they're back to normal. Because then you're getting that blood sugar level back up.
In a situation where you're looking at diabetic shock and you pull them through and they're coming back to normal, are you still saying, we got you feeling pretty good, you think you're 100%, do we still get you checked out?
I would hold them and let them rest for a while, 20, 30 minutes, just to make sure that, you want to make sure the sugar level is back up, that they're cognizant of what's going on, and that they're breathing okay, everything's normal. Okay. And they may be a little tired too. It's kind of like after a seizure. You want to give them time to rest because they come back really tired.
Yeah, your body just does all the things and then gets...
And you never hold anybody down during a seizure because those muscles are contracting at such a high degree
they can
of
hurt
energy.
Themselves so much more.
They can break their own bones.
Do not hold them down. Do not put anything in their mouth. Right. I feel like that's something that I even learned when I was a kid was, you put a spoon in their mouth or whatever.
Right.
One of my best friends growing up was epileptic. So I learned... the proper way. But I know a lot of people who don't know anybody, just remember that childhood training of put something in their mouth. Don't do that.
Talking about first aid kits, there used to be bite sticks in first aid kits.
I mean,
that wasn't just for amputations?
No.
We've learned things.
Yes.
And we need to adapt.
Well, it's like the old snake bite kits where you take the little razor, make the little X and suck out the venom, or you would
I got it.
Had a little suction tube where you'd put the suction tube over the cut and supposedly suction out the venom.
Okay, but speaking of that, we just put that on our gift guide or some kind of guide.
Bug bite. But that's a bug bite.
But that's just for bug bites. Can we do that for bug bites? It's like a little plunger. And it's like mosquito bites and bee stings and stuff like that. And it just sucks out the little...
Here's my take on that. To me...
Your face is cracking me up.
Yeah, to me, this fits in the category of it probably doesn't do more harm, but if it's a placebo, your mind makes you think you're better.
It works,
you're
though.
Better. I love placebos. I do.
Okay, if it's a bee sting and the stinger is still in it,
right,
you're recommended to take a hard object and scrape it off. I don't know that the suction thing will actually pull the stinger out. Maybe, maybe not. The one thing you don't want to do is grab it with your fingers
and squeeze it.
Right. Because you're squeezing more venom.
Yeah.
And then you wash it with soap and water and put ice on it.
I do baking soda mixed with water on it.
Baking soda is
and it's
good
supposed to take
for... Yeah, baking soda is good for...
I use it for jellyfish.
Jellyfish.
Yeah.
That and a hot shower.
And pee.
No.
I don't care.
But I saw it on a Friends episode.
I thought it was true because I'd grown up, living in San Antonio. You hear stuff from the coast.
Right.
Okay. So that needs to be the next time you come. We need to do the greatest first aid myths that we all grew up knowing and why they're not true. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
We've hit a couple of them, but I bet there's tons that you have to repeat over and over again when you do these classes. And you're just like, wrong.
Right.
We don't do that anymore.
This is not 1950.
We've had a crazy year with COVID and with weather events and things like that. Have we learned anything? Have we updated on how to be prepared? For our RVers.
I would say masks and gloves.
Okay.
Make sure you've got both, especially if you're willing to stop and render aid or at the campsite or something. Definitely mask and gloves. Get your vaccine because that's going to help so much. As far as RVing, I wish I had a generator in my house like I would have had on the RV.
Yes.
Because the power outages are so horrible.
It's weird to say a generator is kind of a first aid potential
but it can
consideration, but it totally can be.
We were having talks with people who had oxygen concentrators in their home.
Right.
And these people are on oxygen all the time, and without electricity, they don't have oxygen.
And if you and this is another pitch for if you have a health issue where you might need a device like that, you shouldn't just keep yourself away at your house. That shouldn't hamstring you so you don't explore the wilds and natural settings. So if you can prepare with a generator or something like that to still use your equipment in your RV setting, folks, your travels and your ventures should not be done just because you need equipment.
Right. There's a lot of traveling oxygen tanks, and now with diabetic port or patches and things, you can get out there. Just make sure with diabetes, make sure you're preparing your meals and you have backup plans and things like that. Also, make sure that you have your phone charged. When we lost power, it was people sitting out in their cars charging their phones. There's no way to call 911 if something happened. So
that's actually how a lot of the hospitalizations happened, is people trying to charge their cell phones in their car and not understanding that
carbon monoxide.
You need air.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's unfortunate because it's one of those things that people just don't think about. They don't realize, but definitely cause some hospitalizations and some.
Yeah. And we used to feel like that was common knowledge. I don't want to say common sense, because anything dealing with gases that you can't see, can't smell, that's not common sense. We used to feel like it's common knowledge. Everyone knew about car exhaust. Everyone knew about generator exhaust. Everyone knew about propane burning things inside. But because so many of us in our current generations in urban settings and things like that have never had to approach these scenarios, it is no longer common knowledge. It
seems like just like a movie thing.
Yeah.
Like something you see in movies and
that's not real.
Yeah. So, good question.
Okay. Now, what about as people are starting to pull their RVs out of storage and get everything ready for their trips and their plans and all that? Do you have any ideas on how to prepare yourself, your body for travel, and what to do as you're traveling to keep yourself optimized?
Elevation.
Well, yeah. If you're going to a higher elevation, make sure that you give yourself time to acclimate. Going to the top of Pikes Peak, you may not breathe like normal. So be prepared to take it a little slower. Your body will acclimate, but it can take some time when you've traveled up into the mountains.
Right. And be really conscious of what your body's doing, because people can have altitude sickness even if they are on foot climbing to higher elevations at a certain speed.
Totally.
And people die from altitude sickness
because it confuses. Your lack of oxygen messes with your thinking ability. And so you may not be aware of a danger of the edge of the cliff is closer than you thought it was,
right,
or something like that. So that you have to give yourself time to acclimate. If you feel yourself a little foggy in the thought process, that's a good indication that you're not at your best. Go take it easy. Go back to the camp and rest and get your body back into tune and acclimated to that degree of lack of oxygen.
Yeah. What else would someone do as they're getting ready for their trips? Would you recommend taking more walks? Would you recommend preparing in other ways?
My daughter and I were getting ready to go hike the Grand Canyon. We were going to go down Bright Angel Trail, catch a raft, and do whitewater rafting. So we went on walks carrying our backpacks. We weighted them down to get the body ready. On that trip, we were all prepared with water and food, and we were drinking water as we went down, but it was July, and we were along the cliff side, and I bet it was 120 or better along that wall.
Well, those cliffs are basically a big old ceramic sponge absorbing the heat and leaching it back out at you.
Exactly. So we were almost down to the water, to the raft, when my daughter collapsed. And I had been making sure, and she wasn't a little kid. She was in her 20s, 30s. I think she was in her 30s. Anyway, she'd been drinking her water, but she hadn't been eating. And what I learned about that is a disease called rhabdomyolysis.
I've heard of rhabdo. Like, that's bad stuff.
It's bad stuff. As a matter of fact, they told us they'd had 2 hikers die one in each previous 2 weeks. And these were healthy young guys. The thing with rhabdo is if you're not eating and drinking enough, then as you're exercising, especially in the heat, the body starts taking its fuel from the organs in your body.
Eating itself.
It eats its muscles.
Yeah. This happens a lot with weightlifters. If they're hitting it too hard, or if they haven't been lifting in a while, they take a break or something like that, and they come back and they try to lift like they used to. That mindset puts a lot of bodybuilders and weightlifters in the hospital.
It happens that fast?
Within, real fast.
Wow.
Between the heat and the exercise And we even started carrying, offered to carry her backpack. But when she went down, our guide, he called for help, and they went and got the park ranger, who was also an RN, and brought her down. And that was their biggest concern. So instead of getting on the raft, we hiked back up to the halfway point to the ranger station, and which was a clinic.
And this was so common, and yet most of us who think about hiking anywhere, doesn't matter where, we aren't. Rhabdo is not on anyone's mind whatsoever, but it's common enough that it was one of their first concerns.
And I'd never heard of it until then. And so we had to, it was nighttime by the time we got there, and she had to be medevaced out of the canyon to the hospital, where they, the nurse actually at the clinic started her on IVs, started in giving her food and giving her IV fluids.
I've heard of people taking like days before they're released from this because they're so scared of what the body can do to itself.
Fortunately, when we got medevaced out and we got to the clinic, the doctors checked her out and she was released that day.
Wow.
But it was kind of scary. The next summer, we rebooked our trip, and we went in at the top of the canyon and went all the way through the canyon and got airlifted out at the other end. So we didn't have to hike Bright Angel again.
Now, wait a second. Why were you airlifted out at that time? On purpose?
Because that's the way they take you out. You don't go all the way through the canyon. Yeah, that's
good airlifting.
Part of the trip.
You never know with Teri.
Good. Well, I actually got to ride out on the helicopter with Heather, because here I am thinking only the patient gets to go. And so I'm thinking, okay, she's got to go. I got to get her father come back. He had gone on a trip after he dropped us off. I got to hike myself out. How do I get back? And I had gotten a little dizzy, so our guide told the nurse, and she got a little dizzy. So she's checking me out. Well, I have this little funky arrhythmia in my heart. And so she's got me on the
You got
EKG.
a golden ticket.
And she looks at me, are you all right? Yeah, I'm fine. She looks at the EKG machine. Are you all right? I said, yeah. I said, oh, and by the way, I have this little funky rhythm going on. She goes, well, you just got a golden ticket.
That's right.
You get to fly out too. So we got to fly out on an Army or a military helicopter, and then I got to fly out on another helicopter.
Yeah.
And I've flown a helicopter over Grand Canyon. I've seen it up there. I've seen it down here, and I've seen it down there.
Nice, but not the right way to do it, Teri.
Not that trip. The next one was much better.
It's like the green eggs and ham of Grand Canyon trips.
Now, we talked about some things, just you and I, before we turned on the mics, on what you do while you're traveling to take care of yourself.
Eat right, rest. When we take our camper out and we get to our campsite, we set up, and I'm the driver. I walk. Right. I get out and I walk that campsite, because number one, you don't want to sit for long periods of time.
The body's not actually supposed to sit in that position for that long.
I just came back from a trip yesterday, and it was 3.5 hours in the car, and I didn't stop once. And man, when I got here, I couldn't figure out why I was so tired when I didn't even do anything.
That's exhausting. But you also risk deep vein thrombosis, blood clots in your legs.
Yeah, she's using big words, and that's scary stuff.
It is. And that's, what they tell you on long plane flights, get up and walk or wiggle your feet or do something.
Yeah.
Because blood is not meant to sit still. If it slows down, it clots.
Right.
So you want to make sure you're trying to stay in motion. If it's you're on a long haul, stop every so often and walk, get out and walk around the camper. Right. But you don't want to be sitting in one position for any long period of time.
Right. And we in our culture, our travel culture, particularly us guys, but I don't think it's by much of a margin. I think it's all of us. We're like, we made good time. And by saying we made good time. There. Yeah, we're talking like I drove 5 to 7 hours or something like that. And we could be paying a real high cost for this goal that isn't even necessary.
Like PJ always says, you don't
win any races by arriving first or something like that. I don't know. I'm sorry. What did she say?
Sure, that's it.
What is it then?
I don't know. But something along those lines. You don't get a trophy for getting there first.
Yeah.
But I've done that too. And the kids are all asleep in the car. I just keep on going.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's peaceful driving.
Yeah. It makes sense. But just make sure you're stopping and stretching your legs. Like you don't have to make it
it's not a marathon.
Run a mile and then get back in the car. Just, move.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you'll feel better. You'll have more energy. And it's nice. I love getting out and looking at all the other campers and walking through that park and seeing the beauty of the park and the amenities.
Yeah, I would only worry if I were actually Teri Lucas and I did that. I would worry because the way things happen in your life, my first
You're going to find an injured person.
You're going to find an injured person
on your
walks.
first lap.
I can't even go to a restaurant. A few years ago, I don't know if I've told you this. I won't name the restaurant, but we were at a restaurant and I had one of the babies, the grandbabies, and I left the diaper bag in the car because we weren't going to be there that long. And I'm sitting there, my husband's finishing, the baby's fine. And I get this thought, go get the diaper bag. And I'm arguing with myself.
Yeah. And you're like, the baby doesn't even smell yet. We're fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm arguing in my head, I don't need the diaper bag. Go get the diaper bag. So I looked at my husband and said, watch the baby. I'm going to go get the diaper bag. When I got up, I'm still, why am I doing this? And I walked to the front door. The table right across from the front door has an older couple sitting there. And I look at her, she's in a wheelchair and she's got water coming out of her mouth and her nose and a big capsule on the table in front of her. And I think, oh my gosh, she's choking on her medication. And I look at her and I go, are you getting any air? You're supposed to say, are you choking? Are you getting any air? And she looks at me, she goes, shakes her head, no. I said, okay, I'm going to help. And I go around and there's no way I can do the Heimlich around her and the chair. Uh-huh. Now, if someone is pregnant or obese and you can't get your hands around the middle, you come right up in the chest, right in the middle of the chest and pull straight back. Mm-hmm. Well, I couldn't even get to that. So I came around, I looked at her and I said, are you still not getting any air? And now you can see the panic in her eyes. So I took the heel of my hand and I pushed it against the center of her chest about 3 times. It opened up her airway. We cleared it up and she was fine.
How many lives do you think you've saved?
I just like
That's
to think.
a hard question. Yeah.
I just like to think I was just at the right place at the right time.
I know, but like you have so many stories like that and it's so awesome. I guess just the universe and the powers that be just like know that you can. So they put you in the right spots. But that's really cool.
I do pray that if I am in those spots, that it's a good outcome.
Yeah. Before we let you go, I'd like to just mention to anyone who's listening, if you're ever in the Central Texas area and you would like some first aid training, if you would like to meet Teri, to, I don't know, go to coffee with her, any of these things, look up Teri Lucas, look up her business. It is Kardiac with a K, Lifesavers.com. You can get some training. You can get certified.
You can get CPR training for your business, or for your coworkers, which is always good. If you have people coming in and out of your business, they need to know how to save people. And we did it here. We need to do it again. But let me tell you, she makes it as fun as it can be, and you will hear some stories.
And she's not just teaching the one-offs, and if you have kids, perfectly go for it. She has training for parents and people who babysit, but she is trusted by local police departments and fire departments and EMS departments. They come to her to re-up on their training. So this is not low-level stuff. All right. Look up Teri Lucas, look up Kardiac with a K, Kardiac Lifesavers. If you're passing through Texas, if you're in Central Texas, if you're coming to see us at Princess Craft, make a additional high value stop here.
Yeah. And if you just want a demonstration, you have a group.
If you want to be a demonstration.
I didn't quite mean it like that. I have a mannequin. You don't have to be the mannequin.
All right.
Although I know I've threatened that with you a few times.
Yeah, I'm going to knock you out, Clint.
I used to teach it in class when I taught at middle school. And all kidding here, I would tell the kid, if he was giving me trouble, I'm going to kill you. I'll bring you back, but I'm going to kill you if you do that again.
Bring you back.
You're going to see the light. Don't walk to it.
Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And as you know, you are going to get another invite. We're going to have another idea to talk about. So thank you again. All the best to you and to Marty and the kids and the grandkids. And I hope that you have some trips coming up.
Me too. I love being out there on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, if you're listening to us, again, our sponsor, Truck Camper Magazine, they would get behind all this that we've talked about today as well, because truck camper folks and people who like truck camper folks, you guys get way out there. And you know that if you're out there experiencing the best that the nation has to offer in national parks or BLM land or what have you, you need to be prepared. Truck Camper Magazine serves those kind of people. This type of content also serves that kind of lifestyle. So thank you, Truck Camper Magazine. Look them up, truckcampermagazine.com.
There are a lot of places you can get in touch with us. You can stay in touch with us. You can really join the RV Small Talk community. First up is RV Small Talk community page on Facebook. So just search for RV Small Talk community. We love seeing pictures of your camping trips. We love when you ask us questions. Speaking of questions, if you have any questions for us or for Teri, send them over to our new email address at
questions at rvsmalltalk.com. That is, again, questions at rvsmalltalk.com. You know, it doesn't have to be a question.
No. If you have a question, bring it on. But we also want to hear your stories. We want to hear suggestions for future podcasts. We want to hear what you want Clint to wear on the next recording.
What?
our next Facebook Live. Yep. Silly hat? Silly hat day?
Why not?
We do a Facebook Live every Friday at noon at that RV Small Talk community page. I know that was a lot of information, but we really appreciate you guys. 5-star or any star review on Apple Podcasts, but we certainly love 5. And keep in touch. We're trying to build a community here, and we want to hear from you guys. So let us know what you're up to.
If I may jump in, we have one more way for them to contact us.
Oh, we do?
That is our new Google Voice number where they can call us.
Fancy.
And ask a question or comment or all the above that you just mentioned.
And then we can put it on air?
Right. If it's
Nice.
something that we are, wanting to address, well, how about we just let them use their own voice to ask it or tell us?
Have we gotten any voicemails yet?
Not yet.
Come on.
Let me
Small
give that
Talk
number.
community.
That number is 512-843-1311. Again, that number is 512-843-1311.
And we know you're driving, you're pulling that trailer, you're on your way to your next destination. So just call us and leave us a message. Tell us where you're going.
Absolutely. So from all of us to you here at the RV Small Talk podcast and here at the wilds of Princess Craft RV in Round Rock, Texas, thanks for joining us this episode, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
I'm having flashbacks. When I was a kid, my mom had a TV show in San Antonio.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this.
Your mom had a TV show?
Yeah,
a cooking
did you
show.
not listen to the last episode we did with
It
her?
was a long time ago.
It was with like the original HEB.
Pretty close.
What?
She did a cooking show sponsored by HEB.
Aww.
And she did radio, I forgot what it's called now, but we did radio commercials. So I was on TV commercials for HEB, and I did radio spots. So
You know what's cool? What would be cool is to live life in such a way that you have stories like Teri.
I just want a story that has to do with HEB.
Well,
I love HEB.
I say that, but Teri, a lot of your stories have blood and guts and stitches.
Well, when I teach my first aid, I have a story for every subject we teach.
Yeah. What's funny is you didn't go out looking for these stories. These stories happened, and then you started teaching the stuff. And some of them happened after you started teaching stuff. But you did not go out looking for stories. Stories came to you to better your teaching.
It gives
Moments.
validity. Yes.
Right.
When I say we need to stop bleeding, I can tell you I've stopped bleeding.
Do people ever question eventually in your classes like, now wait a second, that's literally a story for everything. Are you sure this is all true? Do they ever like?
No. No, they don't question me.
And that's just the deal, is that your stories are so detailed and
Well, another good, I've heard if you lie, you have to have a good memory.
It's really true.
So I must not have a good memory because the stories are always the same in every class.
Yeah.
I was a really bad liar when I was a kid because I didn't understand that
Did
you
you
have
get
to keep up. No,
Practice makes perfect.
Now I just don't lie because it's too hard.
It is.
It's way too hard. I don't have time for that.
And somebody will say, is that the truth? Yeah, like I have time to sit around and make this stuff up.
Right. Your time's valuable, so is mine.
How does that benefit anybody?